Welcome to Educate, Inform, and Challenge. My name is Teresa MacLennan, and I'm the Executive Director of the Women and Children's Shelter of Barrie. Our program is to talk about and dive into the lives of women. We talk about gender equity, violence, women in leadership. We really want to explore and understand the lives of women from all walks of life. So we are really thrilled that you are with us here today. And before we begin and dive into talking with our wonderful guest, we do want to thank and acknowledge from our Indigenous people the land that we are on. We thank them for being able to have these conversations here. We thank them for their partnership and their guidance to all of us. And so thank you for this space. So without further ado, I want to welcome my guest today, Lilliane. Hi, Lilliane. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
So Lilliane, maybe a good place to start is, can you let our viewers know what role you play here at the Women and Children's Shelter?
So again, my name is Lilliane, and my role at the Women and Children's Shelter of Barrie is the Children's Services Worker, and I work in the Department of Children's Program.
So let's dive into that a little bit more, because a lot of folks in the community really don't know what happens in our shelter day to day. So when a woman comes into our shelter with her children, can you help our viewers to understand the trauma that those kids are, what they've experienced, what trauma they're bringing with them?
Absolutely. So we do welcome families with children who have experienced trauma in a lot of ways. So these children come in when they're already dealing with difficult situations in their lives. So this is when we barge in and help them and support them. And based on the services we offer in the shelter under the children's program. So children experience traumas like they come in when they are psychologically traumatized, they're emotionally traumatized, they're socially traumatized. So all those impacts we see and observe while working with these children, you can see that the violent incidents that have been occurring in their, wherever they've come from, has caused a lot of impact on these children. Mm-hmm. So, and that's when us child and youth workers, children's services workers come in and start working on that, to start to see them and let them know that there are services out there in community that can support them, can try to fix their life again. So that's how we come in as our roles.
So I think that is really great for our community to know that, I mean, women will come into the shelter, they may just show up at the door. They may have nothing but maybe a garbage bag, you know, that they were able to throw some things in, and they will have their children in tow. And so, you know, what I'm hearing is that the children have witnessed violence towards their mothers. They may also have experienced their own violence directly towards them. And so the children come here with their moms, and they come in and they're getting settled. What, in your experience, how do the children act when they first come to the shelter?
Oh, absolutely. I noticed a lot of changes for children who have witnessed violence and have been abused or have seen abuses situations in their lives. Again, the impacts. So those children struggle a lot. They struggle a lot. They lack the ability to trust. You know, when a child witnesses violence and the child has been abused in so many ways, they lack that trust to everyone. They feel like, you see the struggles in this child and the impact, the strong impact And as we all know, like me as a children's service worker, I see all like the impact, how the impact affect children, a child's developmental growth. So they lack the ability to trust. They always they shy off. Like socially, they can't be interactive. They feel guilty. They seeing mom being sad all the time. Sometimes they'll wonder why they're in the shelter. So they really struggle a lot. They can't be in community. They find getting into communal living space is really hard for them to cope. So you find a child shying off, hiding, does not want to engage, even with other children, but they have their own reasons. And that's due to the impact that they've experienced before coming to the shelter. And that's how we support. We sit down with moms and we assess and evaluate and see how the violence and the abuse has shaped this child. And that's when, with mom getting more information from mom, we can learn how can we support your child. We ask mom, how can we best support your child? What do you want us to do? We're here for you. So with,
yeah,
okay.
no, please go ahead, Lilliane. Yeah.
So because we are helping them and supporting them to thrive, despite all the circumstances, the difficult situations they have been through. So that's when we, after getting mommy's information and telling us more about their children, that's how we start and help these children. Yeah, but most of the times, these children struggle a lot socially, economically, like emotionally, you know, so it's really hard for them.
And you also mentioned developmentally. So, you know, we do know that children will struggle with learning and self-confidence when they are living in and experiencing violence, either of their mothers or directed at themselves. It changes brain function. And we know
absolutely
that, right? So development can be impacted. So it really sounds like, from what you're saying, you have to spend a considerable amount of time just building a relationship, both with the mom and also
children,
with that child, and trying to rebuild trust for that
rebuilding trust. First, you work so hard to create that confidentiality piece. Mom knowing that all the information she's going to disclose to you is going to be confidential, because they come with fear, you know, they come with fear to run for safety, you know. So after identifying the confidentiality policies of our shelter services, then we work on building trust. Building trust, and then the both mom and children, if they gain that trust from you, you get more disclosures, and that will give you a start point to best support them.
I think it is so important for folks to realize, well, we always talk here at the shelter about how brave women are and the difficult decision that they have to come to when they make the decision to leave and come to the shelter with their children. And all of the factors that they have to think about to be able to make that decision. And when we think about that from the child's perspective, and you really highlighted a lot of that, can the children come, and do you think that sometimes they have very mixed emotions about being here?
Of course.
So there's an attachment and a love for their father figure, whoever that might be, even though that person is abusive.
Absolutely.
And the internal struggle, I'm sure, must be. Of course,
so yeah. So we see children, So we see children, they come in, and that's part of grief. They'll come in and say, Miss Lily, I miss Dad. Will I ever see Dad again? So that's the conversation that I get to have with some children to enlighten them. It is okay to speak about that. It's absolutely okay, even if you're here for safety with mom, but it's fine to speak about that. And dad is aware. I tell children, you have to tell the children the truth, that sometimes there are people who hurt others, and they are aware that there are people out there in community who can, like we talk about punishment, the consequences of doing something bad. So a child will know that, yes, I'm missing my dad, but dad didn't do something right to mom or us, me and mom.
So there's a big education that,
yes.
I mean, you're helping this very vulnerable little person come into the shelter. And then you're trying to build relationship, trying to build trust, but then also trying to educate them about what it is that they've experienced, even while they still, of course, love their father.
Of course.
They want to talk about them. They miss them. And I think it's so important for our viewers to know that, yes, we are a women's agency. Yes, we support women who have experienced violence and their children, but we are not here to talk badly about the abusive father.
The perpetrator,
That is not what we are about. It is not how we approach things, because in many cases, and I think, Lilliane, we're going to dive into this, even though women and their children will come here in the shelter, the children may still have visitation with their father.
Absolutely. And part of that, we do safety planning based on the situation, based on the family situation. We know child is going to have access to go see their father. We do safety planning based on the child's age. And so they go when they are aware of what they should do, when they're well equipped when it comes to safety in case something goes wrong while they're at access with that.
Yeah.
And we also explore our services like Children Aid Society offer classes for dads to fix their behavior, Yeah. So there are so many supports out there during when these children are grieving to us, Yeah. So we explore lots of things.
Because, we do have women that come into the shelter and they're a partner who was violent or abusive is seeking counseling, is doing the work to try and change that behavior. Absolutely. And we do have women with their children who will choose to reconcile with their partner. And that's another really good reason why we do not come from a place of attacking the abuser, because our work is truly to support the woman and her children in terms of what her journey is. And I really love what you're talking about in safety planning, because the woman may decide to go back, and how can she be safe if things go wrong? So we are going to take a very short break, and we really encourage our viewers to stay with us. We're going to dive in a lot more and talk about just how Lilliane does her incredible work with the children, and really what progress she sees. And then when the children are ready to leave, what that looks like for them. So stay with us, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Educate, Inform, and Challenge. We are talking with Lilliane, who is the child and youth worker here at the Women and Children's Shelter of Barrie. And we were just talking about the difficulties for, women to make the decision to come into the shelter with their children, but how challenging that transition is for children. They leave their home, they leave their neighborhood, they may be leaving their school, their friends. And as Lilliane was saying, they come here to the shelter and they have no trust. And part of the work that Lilliane does is to start to rebuild that trust. So Lilliane, welcome again. We're so glad to have the conversation with you. Tell us how you start to work with the children here. Where do you begin, and what does that look like?
Thank you. So again, the journey starts with trust, building trust, rebuilding trust. So I usually start with the intake process. It's called the children's intake process. The great story behind that is getting more information from mom about her children or her child. And those questions give us a guide how to best support her children and sometimes herself as well while accessing services at the shelter. So part of that, it's a process that takes time. It doesn't happen within a day. And again, you have to find if mom is really comfortable. Like, again, building that comfort zone, like homey, welcome. I always give mom 2 weeks time to do that process. And when they have already settled into the shelter, they're used to the environment, to communal living and shared space. So we get to starting helping their children. And so I always use I have a tool in my intake process. I always get out there's a documentation from Helping Children Thrive. It's called Children's Nurturing Will. I've noticed every time I show that and explore that with moms, you can see how mom is great and really appreciative to be in the shelter and does not even regret to have access to or have come to the shelter. So we explore about different things like promoting protection, respect to your child, giving them time, discipline. We talk about discipline, emotional care, physical support to your child. So we explore so many things. And sometimes after that process, like mom is willing and trusting me to support whatever support she needs. She's already down for it, for the process. So that gives me a guide and a beautiful start to work with such families.
So you really are working with the moms, mentoring the moms.
Yes.
And then you also provide direct, maybe play-based learning and relationship building with the children?
Yes, we do lots of activities, emotional building activities. Like we watch lots of movies that are related to safety. Like, so we do counseling as well. We get one-on-one with child. We do not only have intake process with moms, but also with children. So we hear all about them, and they can tell us what they want. And that's what we do. We listen to them and go by their flow, not to force them.
Yeah. So you really let the child sort of lead you in how you work with them. And I should imagine that as you are building a relationship with mom, but in particular, when you're building a relationship with the child, you are showing and kind of in a very subtle way, showing that child what a healthy relationship looks like.
Mm-hmm. So, and also creating that bond between mom and child, Sometimes moms come struggling, saying because we feel abuse or violence and child is mad at me, So we talk about a lot of things for children not to feel guilty, and children thinking that mom should always be sad even if the violence ended, right? Mm-hmm. So mom, not to have that perspective that mom always has to be in this situation. And so, affirming and assuring them how safe they are at the shelter, like asking them what kind of interests, like the interests, what activities do you want? Like, it's so sad of COVID, like we've been offering outings in communities, like lots of places. We take children swimming, so many outdoor activities, indoor activities. And also we're so lucky, and we thank our donors and funders who really support us. We access counseling sessions from community. We access yoga classes. We access music classes. So that's very important. And moms really love those things, and they hope their children not to be sad all the time, feel sad and feel lost. So they make all those supports and services make children feel more comfortable while at the shelter, not to miss, like, oh, I miss my home. Miss Lily, I miss my home, I miss my toys. And so we try to accommodate all those part of safety, yes, they come for safety and regain their balance. But again, we try as much as we can to make them comfortable and feel free, and have moms feel that their children are really cared for and they're in safe hands while at the shelter.
I really, it's such great information. And I think it's so many pieces that really the community doesn't know that we offer. Certainly they're aware that we offer supports and services to women, but we have a very robust, very eclectic children's program. And I really appreciate you mentioning our donors and our fund supporters, because so much of those funds go into the children's programming, creating things like yoga and music therapy and drumming circles, because kids need to learn through play, but they also need an outlet. They need to know that when they come here, we will create a home-like atmosphere for them that will be fun. And so talking about that, when children have been here for a while with their moms, and you've done all of this incredible work and you've built a great relationship with both the mom and child, what changes do you start to see in the children?
You see, I always think after all that process, I see children getting more interactive and participating more, because usually when they just come in, like I mentioned before, like the fear, the anxiety, the feel of confusion, like sometimes children wonder why mom used to love dad, and now mom is not with dad. So it's confusing to them, and sometimes they don't know what the future. Yes, we've left our home, but what's the future holding for me and my mom? I had a child who asked me that, and she was 15-year-old. So we had to explore the expectations, right? And then, so you see that in children, and you notice that and explore it and try to fix it,
Yeah.
So
and I can't imagine just the magnitude of the importance in terms of how you have to do that craft. And there's so much that we could talk about today, Lilliane, and it's just such important and meaningful work. And it helps the kids in the shelter to gain a new understanding about relationships and what a healthy relationship looks like. So we've got about 4 minutes left, and our time has gone by so quickly today, but I wanted to talk about just very quickly, how do you help children to prepare when they are leaving the shelter?
Again, it starts with safety planning. Excitement. Some children are excited that they're leaving to their new home. Yes, and I like it how mom phrased it. We're going to our new safe home. So when they're transitioning to that new safe home, we take an initiative of doing self-care, safety planning with the children, so they can go out there when they're ready to best protect themselves, and building connection in community, So we put together lots of support for families that are transitioning, and you see some children don't want to leave the shelter. The child in the shelter told me, Miss Lily, I don't want to leave this daycare. I don't want to leave this daycare. I want to come back to this class. So you see the excitement by the time they transition they leave the shelter. You see a very difference and very comfortable in them, and they're willing to express themselves. You can see that circle or bubble that they came with when they're accessing shelter is away, has been popped, and they're open, they're really live, So, and then that's when you come in and appreciate the supports you've given to them, and you see, yes, this is really great.
I think it is incredible to watch the journey for the children in particular in the shelter.
It is.
So, just to kind of sum up what you've talked about, I mean, they come in with fear, unknown, sadness, anger. You work through all of that. You build a healthy relationship with them and teach them a different way of having a relationship and what that means. And you work with the children where they're at. And so I certainly have seen it is an incredible thing for people if they ever come into the shelter and they see the kids are playing, they're yelling, they're screaming, they're having fun. They treat other kids like siblings because the kids are safe to do that here in the shelter. We create, so we create a safe environment for kids to be kids.
And moms too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I think, Lilliane, it is really, really important for folks to understand that when kids come here, it's a safe, fun, loving environment, and you are
family.
It's family, and it's
family, and you see how we support moms, respite care, how they appreciate just taking children like a break, relief care from mom, and say, you know what, I'll have your children. Offer self-care to yourself. I'll watch them, just do something that makes you happy. They feel homey, they feel welcomed, and sometimes they cry when they're leaving the shelter. Yeah.
So on that note, Lilliane, I just want to thank you for the work that you do here in the shelter, because it is so meaningful. And I know that kids do struggle when they are going to leave here. But I want folks to know that if there's a woman watching today and she is thinking about that difficult decision to leave her abusive partner with her children, we want her to know that there are great programs and services for women. But Lilliane is a great example of the wonderful support that is here also for women's children. And we value the work that we provide to women and children equally. And we really want children to succeed. We want women to succeed. And Lilliane, you are such a crucial part of the success of the family unit in the support that you provide. So if there's a woman listening today, you've got about 10 seconds, Lilliane. What would you say to her to encourage her?
Get out to community supports. For example, shelters. The Women and Children Shelter of Berry offers massive supports to women. So don't be there and struggle in violence. Please come and access services. The shelter is a safe place for both children and moms in community. Some moms are scared to access shelters, but that's not the truth. Please come and access services.
Thank you so much, Lilliane. Thank you, our viewers, for being with us today. We hope you've enjoyed our conversation. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.